they pay that fee or not. If they're buying something for the softball team, they buy it for the entire softball team. If they're buying something for the football team, it's the entire football team, independent of whether or not that kid paid the fee, because that's not information we publicly share with other people who paid the fee and who didn't.
Yeah. But the soccer team just buggies, and anybody that couldn't afford them, the boosters picked up. So.
Great questions, everybody. Thank you.
Well, I would just definitely, so this has come up, I think Sylvia has a great idea. I think it should go either extracurricular or something, but this needs to be discussed so that, quite frankly, our administration has clear direction on how to handle it. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I was unaware that we might have students playing and their parents didn't pay and could pay. And yet there's kids that are playing that did pay. I'm sorry, that's just not appropriate. So
I would be careful about saying that the parents can pay, because I don't believe we have an insight to everyone's finances based on where we're at in this inflation.
But we have a, that's why I asked that question. There's a procedure if there's a hardship that they can then not have to pay. So, and what I've heard is that it sounds like we've got parents that are just, they're not going to do anything to us, so we're not going to pay. And that's not appropriate.
Yeah, and been downright abusive to staff. If I could be, I intervened at least once and just said, do not let that staff member call anymore. It's not worth that level.
So my follow-up question then to you, Rich, is that do you see the trend getting greater of individuals not paying? Or is it consistent? Has it been consistent over the last few years?
I don't know the exact answer to your question, fair enough, but the reason I know Mr. Gilbert wanted to bring it to fiscal was because there is a spike in resistance to paying. Now, is that what that number is? I don't know, but we at least wanted to give it to the board for consideration and consumption because it's a topic that comes up, and I'm sure it's reached you as board members.
We'd like to know the number of the spike.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So,
yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask a question, or just not to muddy the waters too much, but I think with regard to, let's call it defiance for a minute, we also have this issue with regard to lunch payments as well. There are a handful of parents, I recall, supporting them either through Giant, the Give Back program, where money was used to offset those payments, outstanding payments that have not been taken care of by parents. So what I'm thinking about is if you're talking about a procedure or disciplinary action or whatever would take place, that conversation also be considered with regard to cafeteria payments that are outstanding. There are a handful, it's not huge, but it is definitely just simply defiance. And maybe it's gotten to a point where it's just too large to take care of. And I do know that PCF, because we recently had this conversation, PCF is willing to assist if there is, just inability to.
Okay. No, thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely. Once again, I didn't realize we had that going on.
And it's really interesting because I don't deal as directly with that as PCF or our cafeteria food services or athletic department is, but my sense in talking with those people who are on the first hand is people believe, some people, not all, some smaller number, believe that they're entitled to these things.
Thank you very much.
They're in a public school.
Right.
And that there are some things that they're unwilling to pay because they pay taxes.
Right.
Full candor, full transparency.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a growing trend here in our country. We're entitled to things. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I just want to say, I'm not a big, sports girl. My kids were, but I have kind of an issue of the fact that we charge for sports, but don't charge for anything else. Especially, and don't get me wrong, music girl here, but the cost of musicals and things like that, and we don't charge for that. So I just have a hard time with that.
I think it's fair that can be part of the overall discussion.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I think we should charge for everything. I'm mixed on that, but I think it is an issue that it's just sports. And just when people buy tickets for the football game, does that money go toward the sports
This goes into the fund.
I think there's an athletic fund. I don't.
I don't know, that would be. a
Goes
good
into
start.
the general fund, but the general fund is what supports the athletic. and
Right, because I'm
activities budget.
like, is there more opportunity and stuff
Nothing.
like that where, you know, we raise the price of tickets or something like that, you know?
The same thing with the plays.
Right,
But it's,
rather
there's no
right.
dedicated
No,
fund.
right, for that, okay.
I mean, we've tried to do it over the years and it just
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's no, we're not allowed to do it. Everything's gotta go through the general fund.
But, and I believe that the money from the tickets from the plays go in to pay for the items.
For that. Yeah,
for
that's what I thought too,
So,
but, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sponsorship. Okay.
Is it, does it self-fund with the
No.
tickets? I mean, do we get enough for the tickets to cover?
I mean, it doesn't cover EDRs and, you know, things of that
No,
nature.
no, I mean,
but-
like the plays, the tickets for the plays, are we keeping separate? Do we know whether our tickets are paying for,
Depends which play they buy.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's a license fee too, so we just did anything goes, we pay a fee to
Right,
license the play, so there's significant how we allocate stadium use versus theater use. I'd be surprised if we broke even, but I know they try to raise as much, like each kid in the play is supposed to bring a sponsor and things like that, so there's, they do try to look at the business aspects of it, but I would doubt that they are evened out.
that's good business class, like exercise.
Well, there's an AP business, right?
Next year.
Next year.
There you go. That would be a great business.
So any other questions on this topic?
What are we gonna do?
Can I just clarify then, what I understand is fiscal committee recommends continuing the current pay to play structure and discussing procedures for collection at an extracurricular committee meeting.
That's what I heard.
And then I had notes about delinquent lunch fees and concerns about charging for athletics, but not for other activities such as musicals.
For
Okay.
band,
Or what?
for band.
I didn't know that.
Band has
that-
uniforms that we buy.
Yeah.
Okey-doke.
So they pay for their own instruments.
But I didn't know that the kids that are in the plays have to bring in a sponsor. I think that's cool. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that everybody does, but.
Well, thank you. This is what I think, Mr. Gilbert, I know we're trying to just give the information to the board because it's out there.
So if the sports kids bring in a sponsor, they don't have to pay their fee.
Oh, good lord.
It's been kicked extracurricular.
There we go.
There we
It's
go.
noted in the minutes.
Thank you, Don. Thanks, Ms. Brian, again, for bringing that up.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are we rolling back to budget presentation?
Please.
Does everyone have a copy?
You're all set.
Yeah, we're good.
You have a copy? Okay,
I'm set.
Okay, thank you.
It's right here. Are you leaving it or you said it?
Okay, from the top, this conversation is a follow-up from a conversation that we had at our last fiscal committee meeting. Again, the district goal, present a version of the 26-27 budget that does not use fund balance except for capital improvements and the retirement spike. The building snapshot, again, as presented January 21st, you could see that information posted there. Initial adjustment or adjustments to initial deficit as presented January 21st, including a 3.5% tax increase. The remaining deficit was at $2 million. So at our fiscal committee meeting on January 17th, we had discussion about this, this goal. And the committee direction following the presentation and discussion was to present a budget that does not use fund balance except for capital projects and retirement spike, and all options were on the table. The board will then discuss and determine which components of the proposed budget will be included in the final budget. So the next set of numbers that you see there is the amount to reduce the preliminary budget with associated tax increases. So if there is no, at this time, early budget, January 21st, if there's no use of, or if there's no tax increase, it's a $3 million deficit. And then you'll see 1%, 2%, and 3.5% tax increase Again, the 3.5% was presented in January. If you flip to part 1 of this document, our normal procedure as we move through our budgeting process is to continually bring to the fiscal committee areas for reduction. So at this early phase, these are a couple of areas for reduction that we are considering adding into the final budget. So one of them is we currently run an autistic support classroom at Springfield Elementary School, and it's run through the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. We are very excited and will be presenting at EPS, bringing that program in-house. So more to come on that. But that looks to be about a $250,000 reduction in our expenditure budget by bringing it in-house. So again, more to come at an upcoming EPS meeting on what that program will look like, but that's one of the areas that we're looking to reduce. We also have an elementary teacher that is retiring. And if she is not replaced, if she is, and through attrition, again, we don't replace her, that's a $163,000 reduction. You'll recall, or maybe you'll recall, we had a middle school teacher that resigned mid-year. We did replace that middle school teacher because the retiree was at a higher salary and benefits than the one that we hired. That's an $81,000 reduction there. We also had mid-year maintenance replacement. It's about $1,500. We do have summer positions, quite a few of them that we run through the summer, but we're discussing and likely not going to replace 2 of them at $15,000. And we just heard from Denny about healthcare. This is an estimate, and I think a lot will depend on sort of the next 2 months as far as what direction we head with healthcare, but we're estimating $75,000 savings in healthcare. So that totals just over $500,000. So that is our new start for, again, working toward not using fund balance in those areas. So again, we will continue as we always do to find areas to reduce. So part 2 then is options for further reductions for the proposed budget for May 2026 to meet budget targets. So the new amount, so that's minus the expenditures from part 1, you'll see the new amount without a tax increase is 2.4. With a 1% tax increase, it's a 2.1, and so on. So those are our new figures that we're working from. So the areas that will bring the budget down quickly are in the areas of transportation and staffing. And these are significant because it's a lot of money in a short amount of time that we're working to reduce in the next 2 to 3 months. So transportation, remove 2 buses from regular runs is about 130. Eliminate after school bus runs, eliminate elementary field trips. So you'll see what the impact of transportation is. As far as employees are concerned, the numbers that you're going to see are salary plus benefits minus unemployment compensation, because anyone that is terminated or furloughed, which means they go on a furlough list and then there's a process to bring them back over time, would be eligible for unemployment compensation. So you'll see that amount listed there. I also wanted to remind you that our slide from the last presentation talks about how we've worked our enrollment. As our enrollment has gone down, how our staffing has also gone down through attrition. So then you don't pay unemployment compensation when someone retires or resigns and you don't replace them. So we have furloughing of non-highly qualified IAs. These are our library IAs. We also have IAs that are in kindergarten and reading. You'll see the numbers there. Furloughing a secretarial position, evening custodians, maintenance worker, elementary teacher furloughs if you went from full day to half day kindergarten. Elementary specialists, again, we maintain them at full time. But this would not be a complete furlough, but a demotion from full-time to part-time to match classes and the grade levels they teach. Furlough teachers due to declining enrollment. So we have, this was looking at our elective class, well, all of our classes to see how many of them run with fewer than 15 students, and then how many of them run with fewer than 10 students. So those that run with fewer than 11, so this is like 10 or less, we have 48 electives that have 11 or fewer students in the areas of art, business, social studies, math, and AP classes. That would be 3.5 teachers. And then furlough an additional number of teachers due to declining enrollment, elective classes with fewer than 16 students. So these are your 5 or unders, or 15 or under is an additional 5 teachers. 20 additional electives have fewer than 16 students. So from the list above, we would add in English, music, engineering, world language, and PE to the list in row 11. Furlough, reduce professional staff providing support services. That could be 2 full-time and 1 contracted. And then you're able to freeze comp plan, equipment requests, out of district professional development, which all of those items would reduce the total expenditure budget by 2.1 million, which meets the goal with a 1.18% tax increase. There's an additional $350,000 that would need to be reduced if you were looking to do that with no tax increase. So again, I just ask that you refer to the page on, actually I have copies of this, the slide on page 5 for how we have reduced staffing over the past 5 years. And then I have a note there that when positions are cut through attrition, resignation, retirement, there is no unemployment compensation cost. Part 3, other options to further reduce the budget beyond 26-27. Again, there are items to consider that cannot be done for the 26-27 budget. So these would be ones for consideration in the next 2 to 3 years. Would be to consolidate schools, close an elementary school. You could then rent the facility for revenue. There's also, we send the students that we send to technical school. If you reduce that percentage, then our percentage contribution would go down, plus then our costs would go down. And then additional options for consideration, offer early retirement incentive across all employee groups to reduce furloughs, if you choose to go that direction. Hiring freeze from now until June 1st. Do not replace and remove from the 26-27 budget. Again, eliminate cost of unemployment compensation. Allocate additional funds from the fund balance for the retirement expenditure. And then review district-owned land parcels and discuss if any portions can be sold. I don't know if they can, but we're trying to identify areas.
We tried that before.
Well, these are all things on the table. There are many I don't recommend, but there you have it.
I do have a question on the number of part 1 with the program bringing the autistic support
Sure.
in-house. Would that serve students just from the district, or would that service students from all areas of
Correct. It would serve our students,
just
but
our students?
correct.
Okay.
Because it would be our own program. But again, I look forward to that conversation at EPS where Lou will be there and our folks, but it would be our students, correct. If there were students that needed to come into our program from outside, there would be tuition that would go along with that. So we'll include that in the conversation.
But that would also be discussed as a board, because right now we don't accept outside.
We
correct?
do not accept tuition. However, we do have agreements with other districts if we need to place our students specifically for
Okay,
special
for
education
special
purposes.
education, okay.
Yes. Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Employees, and maybe Chris, you can answer this. So what fund code did that go under?
Object 100,
Yeah.
What, I'm
the
sorry,
100 codes.
100 code? And then, maintenance, what fund code does that drop under?
Well, when it's referring
all
to, this is all staff.
Oh, this is all staff. Okay, so it's all 100 then, this whole area there. Got it. Healthcare plans and everything is 100.
Healthcare is 200.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kelly, we're coming in the side door.
And then, if we go down the list here, equipment and items like that,
Mhm.
Equipment 700.
700. And outside sources is, outside sponsors is, or additional help is 100 as well.
I'm not sure which one.
On the last page,
What
freeze out
row?
district professional development, I'm sorry,
16.
Professional development will be in the 300s.
300s. And to do with teachers and everything employed is 100.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just, school busing,
Like 13, transportation, or 500.
500, yeah, 500, okay.
What would those, if we would remove those two buses? What
Longer bus rides, we don't know yet. So we would just remove them from the routing.
would that be consolidating
Bus
into
runs?
other runs? In other words, they'd have to change their bus runs to bring in the areas.
So we are a very large district.
Right,
So removing 2 bus runs would then you'd have longer bus runs
right.
required.
As far as that, I think it might be helpful for us to understand how full the buses are. You know, like, are we filling our buses? Are all the kids taking, because we have a lot of parents who bring their kids, drive their kids to school. So it might be helpful for us to know that. And also, how about the after school runs? Is that being used? It is being used heavily. I mean, like,
I have reports on that, and I can
that would be
gather
great. I think
information.
that would be helpful for us to understand before we make any decisions on those.
I'll just throw out, and I could be completely wrong here, but I have a feeling that what we're gonna hear is that it's not so much the capacity of the bus and the utilization, it's the time. We already have parents, and I understand, if their kids are on the bus for more than, 50 minutes or whatever, even 50 minutes is a lot of time. And, we get parents that say it's a lot longer. So that's the issue.
Well, we already have that.
Right,
I know
but
my
you
neighbor was telling
eliminate
me that,
2 bus
yeah.
runs and you're gonna increase at least
Right.
some of those times, not for every child, but you're definitely, so I think that just is like the bigger question than capacity in my mind.
I
So,
heard 2 questions. One was capacity for after school activities and another one was sort of capacity. I don't know if we could do a model of removing 2 bus runs and see how.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
I would also add to the staying on the top of the bus. Growing up, we had hubs, right? There were certain streets that all the children would meet. This day and age, everyone, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone gets picked up pretty much at their door.
Well, there's some rules that are applied, right?
Elementary, you
The
have
buses
to.
can't go into a development,
Okay.
so those kids will get picked up at the,
I just don't know.
Intersection.
And I'm only asking
But other
because
than that-
I don't know.
other than that, I don't know.
Right, because I do recall growing up, we had hubs, right? Everyone met at a certain street corner or whatever for pickup. And I know things have progressed to where little Johnny and Jane are pretty much picked up at their
I
doorstep.
think also what we need to look at and what we do look at when there are concerns are safe walking locations and roads.
That's it.
So if you're growing up in a school district that has neighborhoods and has blocks and has sidewalks,
Right.
that's a different busing arrangement than if you don't have sidewalks for kids to walk on.
Oh, good God, and then we would have been in a relation where I grew up because we had no sidewalks or anything.
Yeah.
We just-
Yeah, I don't know.
I walk to and from the bus stop,
Right.
uphill both ways in the
Right.
snow.
The snow
Right,
in the
right,
summer,
right.
snowing in the summer, but okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Sure.
O'Connor, for that. I
We
appreciate
realize that there is another option there. We provide no busing.
Jim, that was running through my head. Well, we asked Dr. O'Connell to, so that is another option. It's not state law, if
Well,
I'm
it's-
correct.
No, we either do it or we don't.
Right, do it or
We
you
A
don't,
little of
right.
it, no, we can do it or we.
And if we don't do it, then we don't have to supply it also to all the other schools that we have to bus to outside of our radius. So just if we're looking at all options, just
That would be.
So this might sound silly too, and I don't know if there's much of a difference or not, with these vehicles that are used. If there's not full capacity, is there a big savings or no savings to running those smaller van type style things
Just not
than
much.
the big bus? It's not much savings to do
I
that.
don't think so. Because the smaller buses are using gasoline instead of diesel.
Yeah, that's a huge savings right
I
now.
know we've talked about this over the years about, making the small runs, use the smaller buses, but
Buses, yeah. Well, with that
it's
too,
where the cost of the bus too, was very, but I don't think craft would make much difference.
well, I'm thinking with that though, I don't think the requirements are the same for licensing, so they may actually get more people willing to drive those than to go for their CDLs and drive the big buses.
It's
There's,
15 or 12
There's not a
people.
lot of cost savings there.
No. Okay.
About, $40 a bus, $20 a bus run for the mini and for,
You're saying the minibus, but not the vans.
our big bus routes are $360 a run, and our van routes are $320.
I have a question regarding the elementary field trips. When they do field trips, are all three elementary schools, do they do them combined or does
We do
each?
try to have them combined. They're not all that way because we've moved from, there was a time when we had buildings doing different field trips, but we, a couple years ago, streamlined that. So all kids had the same experience regardless of where you went to elementary school. Our bigger trips are all of this, like Philadelphia or any of those types of things, but I can check for you if there are any like one-offs
Yeah.
elementary field trips. We really tried to move away from that.
It
for our
seems like that's
continuity.
a very small amount for field trips. Is that just the transportation?
That's
part of
correct.
it?
That's correct.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful to know a little bit more about that.
I have a question. May I have
Please.
a turn? Thank you. My question is, since I noticed the 55% of the budget has been used, and that seems to be on track, Chris, for where we have been
It's running a
historically.
little hotter.
Little hotter.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, that being said, where will we end up, do you estimate, as far as additional fund balance?
I'm
is
still
concerned?
working on that. I don't think it's
So-
a surplus this year.
You don't think it's a
I don't think
surplus?
it's a surplus this year.
So in years, like last year, for example, can you give me a number of what we had?
300,000.
300,000 was added to fund balance. Thank you. And my second question is with regard to the number of, positions being eliminated, or suggested for furloughing teachers for student, based on student class size. What that does to study halls and things like that. I mean, obviously, student engagement is a huge issue, but there's still staff, obviously, that would be required for supervision of those students that wouldn't be engaged in a class and would be in a study hall, stuck in a study hall. I don't know how that gets quantified now.
Yeah, well, I think it would depend on what those reductions look like, but study halls would certainly increase because we would need we would need a place for students to be.
Right, so then the dollars associated with furloughed teachers because of that would not be that number, obviously, because we would still need staffing to cover
We
those
would.
study halls.
So
as well.
the staffing recommendations in there don't eliminate all of those electives. There are still electives that would run, obviously at the high school, and without elective offerings, depending on how many students would have to go into other classes.
Yeah, not, again,
Yeah,
it's anybody's guess what would be selected or how
Sure.
many kids would be. It's very troubling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sylvia.
So I can't sit here and hold my tongue much longer. I've tried. But I just don't see how this is a student focused budget, like period, full stop. I realize-
I think we asked Dr. O'Connell for a heavy lift and she's just putting out options for it.
I know, but I personally do not see this as a parent, much less a board member, do not see these as options. I realize that gets us to the number we want, but I can't think of a class that my child has that has more than 11 kids in it. To me, this is, I'm pulling my kids out of school kind of budget. So I want to be very, very clear that this to me is not an option at all. For this board or for this district. I cannot see us going this way. I realize that we gave this and this is not Dr. O'Connell's problem, right? I just do not see this as a realistic budget for our community. And these options to me are not real options that support our children's learning. So
agree.
I just want to set this aside and think through what is a reasonable goal for us fiscally this year and moving forward. I don't know that we have board support for that, but if we do, I certainly can't stand behind this furloughing teachers. I mean, we already have complaints about selection, about performance. This only makes all of that worse, in my opinion.
I'm behind yourself.
Go right ahead.
No.
Go right ahead.
All right. So, I would say that I think that there are some things on this list that are kind of interesting and worth looking at. So, for example, like we were just talking about, getting more information on the bus runs and things like that. As you all know, when it comes to, the teacher piece, I don't feel like we have enough. And especially when it comes to the intervention and support for our students. And back to my ongoing, student achievement data, campaign, I guess, especially at the middle level, I really feel as though we need more support there. So when it comes to the, furloughing and stuff of teachers, that really worries me. I think there, like I said, though, there's interesting things here. And again, I'm not saying furlough the teachers. I'm just interested in knowing, more, like line 11, where we say, furlough the teachers due to declining enrollment because of less than 11 students. Like, do we have what's the word I want? I don't know. Do we have Rich, is there, like, if we have 5 kids in the elective, so the elective doesn't run then? So like, what are, okay. So that's what I wondered. Are there minimums? But,
I share with you, Karen, when I say there are no minimums, it needs to be able to match with the teacher's schedule. So if we have a teacher that's available to teach a class with 3 students, for example, and it's a higher level art class, for example, we're going to run it.
Okay.
If we've had art history on the books for years, but we haven't had enough student interest or teacher allowance in their schedule to teach that. So it's a combination of the two. But our numbers of electives that have low enrollment, is high. And that's wonderful for our kids and
That's why we moved here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I know that we did, at some meeting recently, just talk about, it was EPS, about looking at the teachers at the high school and, what exactly they're teaching. Because again, we do hear about the staffing issue, especially from our teachers. So again, more information, but when it comes to, again, the furloughing of teachers, that really worries me.
With the high school, the one thing we are masterful about, I'm talking about board, administration, and teachers. Although we're a small district, our kids have, percentage-wise, the same type of interest that bigger schools do.
Right.
And we're able to provide all of those kids, from your AP student to your dual enrollment student, to your career pathway student, to your electives in the social sciences and sciences student, to the technical school student, to the special ed student, to the emotional support student, and the list goes on and on. The opportunity and the pathway to pursue what's going to prepare them for life after high school. Yes, sometimes it means that you have class sizes of less than 11, but we're meeting nearly all of our kids' needs to the best ability we can. And this is what happens sometimes. And, we can have an AP class with 20 kids in it, or we can have an AP class with 7 kids in it. But the 7 kids that are sitting there, we're meeting a defined need, just like we are. So that's the one thing that we do really special here in this district, and we always have. And I think it's kind of part of who we are, our fabric.
Well, I do think, again, at EPS, we've talked about a couple potential things in the future, sharing courses with there's possibilities there for the future. And that could help with some of those things. But, my one final question isn't our overarching question whether we're taking out of fund balance or not? Isn't that the overarching question here?
Mm-hmm.
Cora?
That's how we're gonna end it.
I agree with Karen and what she's saying. I think we could take deeper dives on some of these and see, what logically would work and what wouldn't. However, looking at our, and this is not going to be a popular thing. I know it'll be very difficult, but looking at our EDRs and what we spend on our EDRs, I think there's an area rather than furloughing teachers. I think if we're going to take a first dive, that might be something that we might want to look at.
I just want to share EDRs are part of your teacher contract.
Yeah.
So that has to be negotiated. That's outside of what I can
Oh,
offer
it
to
is.
you, correct?
So that is included. Yeah, I know the EDRs are included in the contract, but that they have control over that.
You've negotiated with the teachers that EDR schedule.
Right, so every time a new program comes here, for example, flag football came up to the fiscal board here, and we agreed to put that in next year's budget, but we use this year's funds to cover it. Am I correct with that? Is that what we decided when you came around this last fall with Mr. Gilbert, Rich? We were talking about flag football and how we wanted, instead of them being a club sport, we wanted to change their title. So then we have an EDR for a coach for that. And even though we did not have them per se on this year's budget, we took monies that we weren't using, that we didn't have coaches, to pay for the coach for this year.
Right.
So it comes through this committee when EDRs, and we say yay or nay on that.
On new ones.
Right, on new ones, right? And if EDRs are up for renewal, they're renewed through
The teacher contract.
the teacher contracts, okay? So that's where you have to raise your flag, okay? That's where you raise your flag and you say, hey, notice that X, Y, and Z is going on. And
So we're
we look at
locked
that.
in with EDRs, the length of the teacher's contract.
And that's non-athletic and athletic, because Scott and I share a
Yeah.
committee
Yeah,
for
yeah.
non-athletic.
Scott sits on that
Yeah,
committee.
Scott,
Right.
if you want to add.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna throw out for non-athletic, that's the committee that we're on.
Yeah.
We did that at the last, well, we've met numerous times over the years, but before the last teacher's contract, Rich did an excellent job, at chairman of that. But we sat down and looked at every single EDR. Is it utilized? How many kids participate? Number one, should it be eliminated? Number two, is it being paid appropriately? Is it being paid too much? And there were some EDRs that were eliminated. There were some that got less money because we said, hey, the actual participation and the real time that's spent. So that was looked at, in detail prior to the teacher's contract to make sure that money was being spent as well as it can be.
Is there a minimum on the EDRs? I mean, is there a number? Is there a number that they have to have this number in order to
Of
continue
students?
that? Yeah. To continue the,
Typically, it's about 8. We want to have, like, we have eliminated clubs before because they have fallen historically below that 8 number.
Right,
And brought other ones into the fold that have been above it. I know when we pilot clubs, we always tell them the threshold is consistently 8 people attending a meeting. So we look at all of those kind of things over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
I just want to make one last comment. I wholeheartedly agree with Sylvia as far as not being a student-centered budget if this were to be accepted. Again, fund balance has been traditionally used as far as I am aware. I mean, we have 15 years of 0 or less than 1% budget increases. I think that fiscally, you guys have done an amazing job. Bridget's leadership. I mean, I'm looking at even things like the after-school bus runs. I mean, that was put in last year as part of a comp plan conversation for student engagement because we have so many students that are involved in extracurricular activities, keeping them engaged. We live in 100 square mile. I mean, all the things you all know. So I really do agree with you, Sylvia, very much so. And I hope that some consideration will be made to fund balance. Thanks.
I'll just say there's a lot of things here and it would take days to go over all this in this setting. I would like us to break out in some way. I don't think we have to do a workshop, but to go over each one of these items, or that's just me, in a different, just to deal with that, not in a fiscal committee, not in a
Should we target?
EDR committee. I don't know. It would have to be a public meeting, I assume. It couldn't be, it couldn't be executive session, I would think. But I would like to see that happen instead of trying to sit here for another 2 hours and go over these things.
I don't disagree, but I will just, these furloughs, if we're going to have a public working group meeting around furloughing too, this is not going to be popular. It's going to upset a whole lot of people, clearly including me. So let's be strategic about what we are moving forward. If there is if we know that we're not going to move something forward, we shouldn't be having a working group meeting around furloughing teachers. So, certainly the bus route, I'm not supportive of that, but I can see, digging into some of those things. But if we're going to do that, we should be strategic. I also encourage the fiscal committee to think through a goal that feels more realistic for the end of the year. For example, a percentage of fund balance, or, what is this going to look like? What are we, if we're not going to make zero, what are we trying to do here? What would satisfy us moving forward? Or is it X percentage over the next 2 years, knowing that we're having serious conversations around consolidation that would seriously impact these numbers, right? And would change the look and feel of what our cuts may look like, or what our, budget may look like moving forward. So I think would recommend the committee to really rethink what we're trying to accomplish here, especially as we get to the consolidation in, conversations in buildings and grounds next week and others. But there's an opportunity here to kind of reframe the discussion. I would encourage you to do that, understanding that I would think that most of these things do not have majority support.
And I'd like to share too, I will continue to work through each of the items that are listed on this document as I've done previously. There are opportunities for reductions through attrition as there have been for years. And there may be some in part two that we will take a look at. But again, in a short amount of time, these areas would be, pretty devastating, I would say, to our organization and programs we offer. So one area I would say, again, there's this dissonance right now between reducing through attrition and then adding staff. And
That would be me.
I know, Karen, and I don't like I don't like the feel of that. I don't like how I just don't like how it feels to have that push and pull constantly. So if the goal for this year is to reduce staff, to reduce the budget through natural attrition, then maybe we can agree to that for this year, and then additions for support, enrichment, whatever, can come the following year, depending on what you decide to do through consolidation. And then there's a clear goal that of what types of additional programs we may want to offer if buildings are consolidated. But this year, there's not that cross-purpose conversation that's happening. It's cross-purpose, as I'm feeling it.
So the bottom line, as Sylvia said, is how much, if any, fund balance we'd like to use to balance the budget.
And I think
I would like to see what we have budgeted in previous 10 years out of fund balance to balance the budget. And along with that, then how much was used. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's here. I know I could find it, but,
Okay, we'll bring that back next month.
and then at that
Awesome.
point, I would, in my experience, the 2% or so, where it comes up with the $2 million or something out of fund balance. In my opinion, that's a reasonable amount to use because we have it.
Scott?
Well, I'll let Cora go.
I'm just wondering now, the fund balance that you're here, we also are using fund balance for the capital projects.
Yes.
So maybe delineate, how much we're taking out for capital projects?
It's on there.
It's on there.
Is that on there?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
5 million and change.
But you could put more into the retirement spike, for example,
Right.
allocate more in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
capital projects
that
almost
was the part of
$6 million.
Fund balance has been used, like the retirement spike.
Yeah.
Got that built up. Originally, that
Used
was,
in 1 year? No.
that was set up so that it would build up a fund while we were, how can I say this? We were, this is not so wrong, but we were collecting enough taxes to build up the fund at a certain point, and then at the same time building up our annual amount so that by the time the retirement spike got to its peak, which at that point was 33%, the annual amount in the budget, other than pulled out of the spike fund, covered it.
Yeah.
Well, we've exceeded that now. We've gone past that point. So we're using,
2 million.
yeah, just an odd number to go in there against it. So I'd like to see how long that will last.
Okay. Well, you only have 1 more million left.
Okay, that was a good answer.
Yes,
And I'm sorry, that's a budgetary reserve?
yes.
It's not the budgetary reserve, it's the spike fund.
Spike fund reserve.
Spike fund, excuse
There's
me.
only $1 million left in that,
Yes, after this year's budget,
after the 2 million is taken
after
out.
the 2 million is taken out.
Got it.
I was just wondering if maybe we could help Bridget by, rather than having her dig deeper into every one of these areas, maybe could we target some and just say which ones we feel might be possibilities for to dig deeper into? I like what Tim said, just like he brought up a good point.
I heard transportation for sure.
Yeah.
So that's,
Definitely.
it will have impact, so I can share what those numbers may look like, but then this does not at all address impact to kids or programs. So, certainly eliminating after school runs, eliminating elementary field trips, you can get an idea of the program impacts of those.
Yeah.
Some of the areas rows 4 through 16 may become areas through attrition as opposed to needing to be furloughed, but that comes as people announce retirements or resignation. So I can keep those areas in mind.
That April, they usually start.
It could be, yeah. So people can announce their retirement or resignation at any time.
Yeah,
Good call.
I'm just asking, should we?
No, I got it, just one, because I know Scott's been wanting to speak for a while, so I want to go around the room fairly here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just, I'll throw out number one, great job at doing what we asked you to do. I think the majority of these are non-starters, and I am concerned, as Sylvia is, that even if we, discuss them too much, that it's going to get out there as though these are real considerations, and it's going to cause a lot of upsetment in the community and the staff, which I don't think there's ever the votes there for, or just the heart to do it, I think, Dr. Connell did a great job with attrition over the years. And there's been issues with that, and certainly if anything, we've said where we'd like to add some supports. So my thing is I would be cautious about, how we proceed and that we don't cause a bigger problem when it's not something that we're really gonna, entertain. That being said, I think there are some interesting things here to look at, even the buses. I don't think we're gonna like the answers. But and once again, I don't think there's gonna be the vote for the answers. I think, quite frankly, that's why I was sort of with Jim. Well, if you're gonna look at it, what would it be to eliminate the buses? I mean, that's certainly gonna cause a big problem and an uproar, but that would be a big savings, So, I mean, if we're talking, big scope here, maybe you look at the entire thing and how, what that would look at, because I think you could probably add teachers if you eliminated buses. And all of a sudden we could provide a hell of a, with balancing the budget and actually increasing our teacher support. So I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, but if we're really thinking outside of the box, how far outside of the box we're going to think. I will say out of this list, and this is not going to be popular with everybody, but I was on this board when we went from half-day kindergarten to full-day kindergarten. It was a 5-4 vote. I was against. Yeah, I think you're the one that ruined it.
Yeah.
So, I want to say things, but I'm not going to. But it was increased our costs, and whether or not it was really necessary or whether it was just public funded additional daycare. So that would be something. I'm just saying it was a very divided board at that time to even go to that. And to me, that would be something that could be, considered and looked at, and that I think is still reasonable. But I mean, another thing that's not on this list, which once again, we bring it up every year, but is the,
I know what it is.
is the taxes. So there, but I mean, the taxes that we freeze for, for ag preservation and so forth, I have said there are some people that truly deserve that. And then there are others that are just in the program, and it's putting a burden on other taxpayers. So, and I believe that's one of the reasons that we didn't do a carte blanche long-term. It's something that we look at every year. But, if you're asking me, am I going to eliminate some classes for kids or eliminate teachers, then that should also be something that's on this table to look at. If I remember properly, it was around $75,000, I think, last year. And I don't know what that is this year. So just if we're looking at things, we got to be fair and look at it all.
Thank you,
Noted.
Scott.
If we were to eliminate go back to half-day kindergartens, wouldn't that increase our bus costs? Because then we'd have to have buses.
We never provided midday busing.
Oh, we didn't? Oh, that's right. I know with my girls we didn't. Yeah.
So I could
I'm gonna have,
talk with the chair of EPS, to talk about, the full day kindergarten curriculum and what that looks like and what's part of it.
The chair of EPS will not be happy about going back to half.
The chair of EPS may choose to take that up or not. I will leave that. I'm gonna sit back and that way.
If everyone's spoken,
I'd like to just to say,
go right ahead, Jim.
if you're looking for a direction and if we can do it, my suggestion would say around $2 million out of fund balance to balance the budget. If we can direct Dr. O'Connell to do that, then all these big, what do you call it, 2, 3 kind of things are pretty well off the table. Now, if that's can be done at this setting, you're the chair.
All right, as a chair, I'm going to speak now.
Okay.
Very good. Chris, a lot of questions are going to be pointed towards you here. And again, Dr. O'Connell, thank you so much as Director Freeman stated. Thank you for the monster lift. I know it causes some angst and consternation and any other words you want to throw in there. Absolutely. I have a few 4-letter ones for myself sometimes, so don't you worry about that. The animals know me well on my farm. Chris, we have a total expenditures this year. We're estimating at almost 60 million.
Yes.
And of that 60 million, we're saying that approximately 6 million is going to be capital projects.
Yes.
Fair enough to say, right?
Yeah.
So without those capital projects, we're pretty much at 54 million.
Yes.
Okay. So last year's budget, if I recall correctly, we had an estimated budget of total expenditures. We were budgeted 53,610,000.
The current year's budget is 57 million.
57, excuse me, but I went to 2025. I apologize. Okay. So 57, all right. So from this year to next year, right? Normally when we are looking at all the the areas of expenditures, under expenditures, looking at instruction, support services. We're looking at operation on instructional, we're looking at facilities. Is there a percentage of increase that we go by from one year to the next?
No, we look at each line item.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that answer. So, I was looking at the last 5 years, and then I went back and looked deeply into the last 3 years. I figured 21, 22 was after COVID. A lot of things were just very much all over the place after that. So I really focused on the last 3 years. And I noticed that under instruction, which is 1,000, right, we have other instruction, elementary, secondary, 1,400 or 400. I noticed that 3 years running, we barely hit 55% of use of that fund balance. And even though we had an increased amount of a variance that we have. So I don't know what we have, and I apologize. When you sent to me the budget that we're working on, I accidentally deleted it. So I apologize for that. So I don't know where we're at with that. And this is a macro view. Okay. I'm just looking at numbers where I say, wow, we had a lot of a variance in these amounts. I don't know if we're carrying the same numbers forward. I don't know if things have changed in that, but this is just Saul from the 1,000-foot view looking down and saying, hey, okay. The other one is an adult ed program. We would love to offer that every year, but here's some numbers here, okay? 2023, we used 16% of it. 24, we used 23% of it. And last year we used 43% of it, right? We're not budgeting a lot of it, but there's an extra $28,000 in variance there that we could apply. I don't know what's budgeted this year, but when we're looking to limit things and try to remove from core education for our students, these are I'm going to use the analogy of our body, right? We can live without a finger or a toenail, but we can't live without major organs, all right? And we don't want to really touch our teachers. We know how important they are. But if we're looking at other things to possibly cut back on, this is just my observation of looking at things. If I go to support services, I noticed that last year, budget 25, we used 70% of the budget. We had a variance of $370,000 there. Okay. Sliding down to pupil health. I don't know. I don't have all the details on pupil health, what we use there, but we use 73% of that budget with a variance again of over $160,000. If I go to operations, student activities, 3 years running, the average for 3 years was 58% use of fund balance there. Okay, the last year alone, we used less than 65% of that budget with a variance of $580,000. Okay, so, and I'm going to just keep on going down. Our scholarships is a minimal amount that we offer. By the way, these scholarships for our students to attend college.
So there's a revenue piece that comes into that. So this, if that's just the expenditure, there's a revenue piece. So people
From the
donate-
state?
No, for local donors.
Oh,
and
Private donation.
Okay.
private donations.
No more.
Okay.
We're good.
All
Great.
right.
I love donations. Yeah, I'm a big fan of them.
And that's kept separate.
Right. I guess our biggest killer here that I noticed in the past is facilities. When we do building replacement, we say we're going to do the projects in that year, and we don't touch nearly as much of that balance. So I'll give you an example. 2025, we put in there almost $1.3 million for a budget. We used 35% of that. We had $817,000 left over. That's a monster variance.
That was over 2 years
Yeah,
too.
so that,
I know, but the year before that was $1.4 million, almost $2 million. And we had almost $600,000 of a variance. I know we straddle years, but I'm thinking that our budget sometimes gets so big because of projects like this, and we don't necessarily have the time, the manpower, anything to hit these projects. It's not the fact that we don't want to do them. I know we want to do them. We just don't get to them. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, our charter school rate is based on our budget, correct?
Yes.
But not those items. Just
Not those items?
We can pull those out.
We can pull those out. Okay,
I'm
great.
pretty sure, right, Chris?
You can pull out, the majority of operations and maintenance and, activities.
Great. And then I guess, Chris, I don't know what we have budgeted for debt service, but the number from 3 years ago, we're servicing debt of $2.2 million.
Yeah.
And 2025, we're at 740,000. This year, I have to assume we're going to be almost half of that amount.
We're at 589 for next year.
589. Okay, so just,
Yay.
yeah, exactly. And
Those are bonds.
we're managing money great. And so when I run the total expenditures that we've accumulated over the last 3 years, our average is approximately 91% of budget. All right, and a variance
That's
is an
pretty close.
average of $4.5 million is what we have had left over. Okay, so again, I believe it's a great job. Here we want to do, and I'm not the guy that's going to get in the weeds. I absolutely will not get in the weeds. Can we look at areas inside these numbers perhaps and probably tighten them up? I would think so. I would think so. Are we going to find $2 million there? No, absolutely not. Can we find $500,000? Perhaps. Last year, we looked at the special program and we were able to put $2 million into the budgetary reserve. Chris, have we tapped into much of the budgetary reserve this year?
No.
None. Okay, so we
Halfway
did good
through.
housekeeping last year and trying to figure out where maybe we might have excesses and put it into our budgetary reserve. In 2025, we put over $2 million in our budgetary reserve, and that's exactly what was there at the end of the year. We never touched it.
24.
In 2024, we put $2 million in a budgetary reserve and never touched it. Okay, so we have good housekeeping here. I think we're all looking at the common goal. I do believe we're looking at the common goal. Dr. O'Connell brought us up different options. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is the usage of our buildings. We have percentages of students in buildings that are not fully occupying buildings. And we have discussed this before I came on the board of a possible school closure and distributing students to the existing structures. Now, if we really want to have a serious discussion of what we want to do here, we absolutely need to look at that one a lot more. Okay, we have a 43% student population in Tinicum. We have in our other schools absolutely less than 70%. So I'm not saying we're kicking the can down the road, but Chris brought up a great point. Inflation is not going anywhere, and our numbers are blowing out our certain budgets because of inflation. Now, anyone in the room here knows that when they go shopping for their family, costs have not gone but one direction. Okay, we have, Jim, how do we heat our school?
Heating oil.
Heating oil. And we are involved in a consortium. And that consortium meets when to decide, Chris, to purchase our oil?
Usually over the summer.
Over the summer.
They-
Right,
they're supposed
we're at
to do it-
$100 a barrel
they're supposed
today,
to do it in
right?
March.
yeah, we're at
As
$100
late
a
as
barrel
possible.
today. And we all seen this price of oil go up considerably already.
Yeah.
I love history. I read history. I always know that in times of where we're at right now with this country, there's only one way where certain numbers are going to go. That's another factor that we're really not considering here. Last year, what are we paying now for oil, Chris? Was it 3 and change? 2 and change?
$2.
It's, oil is $213,000 of the budget.
And that was a price per gallon of, do you have a,
I don't
Yeah.
have that.
I think it was under $3, if I'm not mistaken. It was under $3. I don't think we're gonna get that lucky this year.
Well, that's how long we wait.
You could wait, the longer you wait, I believe it's gonna get worse. But anyway, that's just me. So I there's a lot to discuss here. We've already had a proposal years ago about what to do with a building. I recommend that we dust that off and really start looking at, is it gonna get solved this year? No. But can we have it on deck for perhaps next year? I can't see why not. I really can't see why not.
Can I give you an update?
Yes.
Great.
So Buildings and Grounds has been handling this issue for school consolidation. And at their last conversation, it was to go out for an RFP for a demographer, a service that will do a demographic study and offer recommendations. So those, I'll share this at Buildings and Grounds, but that RFP went out and has been received, and we'll have a recommendation at Buildings and Grounds for a company to do that demographic study, which once the board approves it, they can begin.
Great, thank you very much.
You're
Yeah, so, those are just my observations, looking at, everyone brings up great concerns. Dr. Bear, Sylvia, I'm all about absolutely giving our children the best education possible. But I'll use again, the analogy of our body, right? Certain things we could probably live without and function just fine. Do we want to live without teachers? No, we don't want to live without teachers. We want to have them here. Can we do something else to trim this back? I believe so. I believe we're already started. Today was a great start to look at where we can move forward and start cutting certain areas or bring up for discussion. But what we need to consider is also, where do we want to be 1, 3, 5 years down the road? And if we just look at the next 6 to 12 months, well, forget it. We're going to miss the target. We are going to miss the target. And Dr. O'Connell has brought up numerous times where we're at with our student population. If I look here, our enrollment in 2020 was 1433. Our enrollment in 2025 is 1337. We're projected a 10% decrease in students by 2030. Oh, 3 years away, 4 years away. Okay, that's another 10% from 1337. Some math, right? You're looking at 1,200 students, plus or minus, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the heavy rock in front of us right now is, what are we going to do with our buildings that keep on sapping our resources without the occupancy in them? That is a heavy rock right now in front of us, and we need to really start focusing on that. We have enough space for all our children and then some in our buildings if we had to shut one down. And we'd have additional resources for all those children as well in those buildings. Serious conversation really needs to get started on where we want to go on this topic. And I, for one, am ready to discuss this moving forward. And I will say urgently, I do not believe it's our, I do not believe we're going to be fair and minded to the existing people in our community that are our taxpayers and asking for more money when we have less than 0.5% occupancy in certain buildings. So those are my discussions. Those are my points. I appreciate everyone adding in today. I think it was very, very helpful. And I will go around the room one more time on this topic if anyone has anything else to share. Jen?
Is there any traction to directing Dr. Connell to use fund balance in the committee?
I think that's something we had brought up numerous times. And I believe once we move forward here, yeah, put a certain percentage out there, but keep on chopping away and keep on looking, right?
Do you want me to read to you what I have so far? It's my direction as I understand it at this moment. At 10:50, continue to identify areas of expenditure reductions / revenue increases and share those items at upcoming fiscal committee meetings, including transportation, healthcare, positions through attrition, homestead, farmstead. I did hear it. Budget to actual items, hold further discussion on furloughing employees, continue buildings and grounds discussion on building consolidation.
Yeah.
Can I add the land
Please.
parcels? I'm very,
Oh, sure.
I know you've tried it before, but I don't even know what district land parcels we have. So I would love to have that discussion then.
We'll take,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, if we can sell something, let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I'm looking at what you have gave us here. We had 159 teachers in 2021.
Yep.
And we're down to 130.
Correct. Keep in mind that that was a real fluky year because it was COVID.
That's
So
what I
we
wondered. We have
ran-
COVID funds there. What does
Yeah,
that mean?
so we received ESSER funds from the government, federal government, and that year we ran, if you recall, full in-person, 5 days a week from the beginning of COVID. And we also had a full online option at every grade level. So we hired LTS teachers during that time using federal funds to run both programs. Like that is like, I
So
needed
there's
to
no
include it.
comparison there. I mean.
Yeah,
you can't-
but we did have those employees. So if you're doing a look back, teacher hiring, was at an all-time high because we ran both a full in-person and a full online program.
So the 159 were actually contracted teachers. They weren't like
So,
SES or
correct.
or something.
So they were long-term sub positions without the expectation that they would continue year over year. And the association, was supportive of that approach, which was awesome.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Linda? Karen?
And so fiscal committee and Bridget, I know that I'm flipping the coin here, but the other night at the EPS meeting, we had a great presentation from Scott Davis, Amber, and Charlie Traber to show the impacts that the intervention is having, how many kids they're seeing. And it looked so good. And so we're going next year probably to a different middle school schedule, more time. More does not mean better. At the elementary, we've got the math interventionists, we've got reading specialists. We need support at the middle level. Can we give Bridget direction that in looking at all of these cuts, also looking at what would it take to have either an interventionist or a coach, whatever is Bridget and the team's decision, but at least to look at that kind of position. Can we have that part of the budget to be investigated? Again, I know it's different than what we've been saying, cut, but again, the achievement of our kids is top priority.
I think personally it would be helpful to see, which I'm not opposed to that, but I think it would personally be good to see that's mapped out, not just at the high school, but maybe at the middle school as well, what teachers are teaching. Because I guess I look at that and go, is there a way to utilize staff there to do that instead of hiring out? Just fill in spots when there's people qualified
Right.
in that area to be doing that now.
I
And I
believe
think-
Dr. O'Connell does that
I
now.
do, and I will
Right.
do that
Right,
work,
she does that right now.
but I just don't know what it looks like yet. And it's still, I mean, it seems like we're racing to the end of the year, but it's still a little early in the season to be able to do that. But I certainly will look at where teachers have holes. That's what I did with elementary, with our
Yeah.
elementary
Okay.
specialists. Again, they are not full-time in the area in which they teach.
I think that is a good part one, Dr. Beer, to take a look at between retirements and everything else,
Sure.
what our staffing looks like. And if there's an opportunity to repurpose and
Yes.
bolster,
Yeah.
that should be probably cut one, given our budgetary goals here. Part two is question mark, depending on what that looks like. But I think if we prioritize that in Dr. O'Connell's movements, then that in and of itself, I think, is good direction for you to, as people retire and do what they do,
Yeah.
to prioritize that support in the movement,
Because,
if
thank you.
possible.
Yeah, because there is always savings when you hire someone who, so I just presented at the top, a teacher that's retiring that I don't need to, that can fully be taken out of the budget through attrition completely. If you wanted to keep that head count, then you can keep that head count. There will be a reduction, but not to the same level as if you remove
Sure.
that position, because likely it's a person without as much experience. The people that are out through attrition are at the top of the pay scale. So I can share those options with you as well. So any attrition, whatever number I had in there is what can be reduced from the budget. So it's always around 160, 170. If that person is just replaced, you'll see right underneath, that's about $81,000 in savings. So those are the two that you're looking at. And one of them is a continual cost. So,
So if we look at your list here, so you've got, you're talking about the, custodian, a maintenance worker. What would that look like? Because looking at what you gave us here and the numbers that we have on the custodians, we went from 21 last year to 22 this year. Was that because somebody retired, you didn't replace?
I have to take a look at that again.
Yeah, because, I mean, that might be an area.
Absolutely.
I think you're a little drastic there. I don't know that.
That is very drastic.
Yeah, so, maybe we can, sure. I think to look at, what would that look like? What would it look like to cut maybe one or two evening custodians? And the maintenance workers, didn't we lose a maintenance worker?
We did. Yeah. So we currently have 4. So
So we still have 4, so we had
Correct.
5, okay.
4.
There was a rehire.
Oh,
Correct.
okay, all right. So, okay.
Good, Cora?
And we don't have any food handler, we're not paying any of the food handlers?
We still have some. That's also through attrition.
Okay, that's what I thought, because it has 0 here, but they're part-time. Okay. I didn't. I'm just trying to target, like, what should we look at? She can't go through all of these and give us, that's crazy. We need to target what we'd like to see more of.
Thank you, Cora.
You're welcome.
Scott? I'm good. Sylvia? I have one thing. I was rereading your additional options for consideration.
Yes.
Number 1 struck me as very interesting here. Call for early retirement incentive across employee groups to reduce furloughs.
Yeah.
That's something that companies do on the outside all the time.
Yes.
It had never crossed my mind, and it's something that you could probably ask for early retirements and then rehire into position at a cheaper cost. Is that something that you were thinking when you were put that on there?
So we've taken a look at early retirement incentives a couple years ago, probably before COVID, and it just financially didn't seem
It
to.
hasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like districts
not
have
enough
correct.
There's not enough
But-
people retiring.
Well, actually,
Right.
two contracts ago,
Yeah,
we
have
did
done it.
that, and it actually worked pretty well, and we actually didn't offer incentives directly to the person retiring. It was pretty creative and it worked really well.
So at that
Now,
time,
we also were heavy loaded in people ready
correct.
to retire.
Yes.
So,
We
yeah.
no longer, we're past that group.
That one just caught my eye. I thought it was. really
Yep,
good.
yep,
Okay, it just-
yep.
And again, I just want to say, great heavy lift. You brought stuff to the table here that I'm sure most of us didn't even think of. Okay. Other things, yeah, there was pitchforks and daggers and knives, and I think I saw a torch in a corner there. But without a doubt, and I'll get you a red haired wig. Okay. But at the end of the day, this is what it's about. All right. This is exactly what we're here for, to bring up ideas. We don't have all the answers, but if we don't ask the tough questions, how are we going to think outside the box to get to the solution? Okay. So we brought up some great things during this, and I want to thank everybody. So thank you.
All right,
We have this to do that.
yes, Upper Bucks Technical School Budget. They're coming Wednesday to do a full presentation for you. So the shorthand version is our obligation is 1.1 million. It's a little bit of a growth. Let's see what they have to say Wednesday.
And we're getting some back from
Yes.
2 years ago.
Yes. Jumping to financial reports, we don't have any budget transfers. Then you have your February financial reports, the prior month expenditure year to date. I note that we're at 55.84%, which is a little higher than which is higher than the last 4 years.
I
Just something to
apologize,
keep
Chris.
in mind.
What page are you on there?
Towards the end of the agenda.
I'm on
I know.
5.C. I don't know which page number it is.
Thank you. Got it. Thank you, my friend.
Then Dr. O'Connor, you wanted to talk about the community survey?
I sure do. So an RFP was posted based on our conversation at last fiscal, reviewing the draft RFP that was posted on last Friday. And those proposals will be coming in April 10th, I think.
Yeah.
April 10th. So stay tuned for that.
Then we have our charter
Yep.
school update. We have one more student than we had last month.
Now, I see we're below that magic number. We were at 20 plus for a while. We're down to, we're 17 now, right? Brick and mortar students, cyber students though, does that keep on inching up on us as well?
I think this is the first growth we've had in a few months.
Okay.
Then you have your right to know request report, nothing extraordinary to report there. Economic update, state revenues are ahead of last year's schedule. And then that brings us to public comment.
I was gonna say, I think we've already had that. That's right.
So for our guests that joined us today, any comments there, ma'am?
No, I appreciate the work that Dr. O'Connell's done and you all have done, and I appreciate the consideration of fund balance use, although I have not heard a number. I will say that. I did not hear a distinct direction.
We have work to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
understood.
but we know we're
Okay.
going there. Any other questions for the good of the cause? Chris, thank you so much. As always, Dr. O'Connell, thank you very much. And thank you everyone else for coming joining us. And thank you, our friend, I apologize for your name.
Ron Gledhill.
Thank you for the IT.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Anytime, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Have a great
Thanks, Ron.
week, everybody. Careful with the winds today and trees.
Wild.